Anyway, welcome guys. It's been a while since we've done a wee video, and we thought we'd do something. Kind of now that we have some gyms looking like they're back on the menu in a couple of months, or a couple of weeks. So we thought we'd start us off with a kind of typical thing that we tend to get, which is a lot of myths that our clients tend to give us. So, and the sort of things that we want to dispel some of those myths and make things a bit better for everybody to understand. And also, hopefully, we'll jump in a wee bit about how folk are getting on in the lockdown. And now we know we're coming to the end of it. Do we have any goals and what we're going to do to get to those goals? All right, MC, I'll let you start off. I'll let you crack on. What's the kind of real common myth that you get? What's the kind of one of those common things you always hear from your clients, like that bring it to you and you have to kind of like help them through it or dispel the myth?
I'll probably start with probably the most common one. I think the one that everyone kind of hears about just now is carbs. Carbs are the enemy. Carbs make you gain. I think everyone's heard this at some point. And I get quite a few clients who'll come up to me and they'll chat to me about this, and they'll start cutting out carbs. I'll cut out carbs and I still can't lose and stuff like this, and proper demonising them. And it's just trying to get them to understand. Demonise it. Just getting them to understand that carbs aren't bad as well. So you're just trying to make them realise that carbs are one of the most basic macronutrients that your body needs. It's the most important probably because it provides your body with energy. So it's just trying to reintroduce them to get that back into the diet and things like that. And you'll probably hear it all the time as well. I don't know how many clients you get asking about carbs as well.
I feel it's sort of from my own personal experience when I've been a PT, it's more been females. Like female clients, sorry, I've got a fly flying about me. I'm trying to wave at it. I feel like it's more sort of like with female clients for me, like they're literally like they're scared to have bread, or they're still like you were saying, like demonize, which is a great word. Like you're talking about having toast in the morning, or like bread, something like that, and they think it's the worst thing in the world. And I always say to them, like carbs give you that energy. You need to make sure you're giving your body the best chance to perform well, to then burn your calories. If you've hardly got any fuel in the tank, you're not going to be able to have that energy output.
I mean, do you think it's a bit of an education problem? Kind of letting people know that like there's no food that's actually categorically bad. Carbohydrate is a huge one, particularly if you're in the gym or you're doing sports, because your body needs it. There's no really long or short way about it. It's different if you've got a medical issue. Like if you're coming to me and you've got diabetes or something like that, and you need to control your carbohydrate, I mean, that's totally cool. That's one thing. But if you're not, I think it's a kind of long way to go. Try to teach people that a balanced diet is always going to be the best. Fruit and veg are carbs at the end of the day. We can't be like cutting them out. If anything, we should be trying to promote healthy eating and getting all your nutrients in, getting your fiber levels in, which is obviously big from carbs. And I think, people are just really scared of them. I think they just associate carbs with weight gain because they tend to overeat. Now, I mean, even then, like, what is overeating carbs? It's really different for each individual person. And if you're doing tons, like we are, so like our normal days when we're not locked down anyway, the amount of exercise that we're doing, we need it to replenish our glycogen stores, to help our recovery. It's not just protein that aids in recovery. There's a whole bunch of things. And I think it's the same thing with all the macros. They've all got their little stigmas. Protein's dodgy. But everyone's like, I've got to eat all the protein. I'm not going to get muscle if I don't eat tons of protein. I need to eat like 400 grams of protein a day. And you're just like, no, you don't. And it's like carbs get this rap for making people overweight. Fat gets this rap for making people overweight. It's like, no, guys. Like,
I think a lot of it comes from probably like social media and celebrities and stuff like that. The whole no carbs before marbs thing. People trying to get in shape before their holidays.
And I remember that, a few years ago. I was going to say that. Like, it's a lot about what you read on the internet. Like you were saying, Des, it's like sort of like an education type thing. A lot of the guys out there aren't really as clued up, and they'll see this random thing to some random woman posting on Instagram, and they'll think, "Oh, I need to do that. That sounds great," and without really just sort of being educated from one of us, for example, or from any PT. any sort of fitness expert or nutritionist.
The other thing is that the success people get from cutting carbs briefly, that's the reason why it gets such a big rap of being like a huge thing. Because when you cut carbs a little bit, I mean, of course you see a little bit of weight loss if you start controlling what you're doing. Also, carbs has a degree of water retention and, as I said, glycogen. And if you deplete your body of those, you're going to lose weight. Not fat, but weight. And because you're losing that initial bit, you think, this has got to be the right thing. Carbs are my problem. Because you've had that little bit of success for a couple of weeks or even a month. And it's not like that. We all know, like, long term, it's going to be controlling your diet over a long period of time. If weight loss is the goal, just simply calorie control,
It's just simply, it's like just not sustainable in the sense, like, I always feel like one of the things is, especially with sort of new clients or sort of people new to their fitness journey, they're not really clued up on nutrition or training. I always think we'll slowly build and we'll slowly help you with your nutrition plans, meal plans, etc. But for starters, let's just get you moving more. People think as soon as they start this mad diet that they don't need to do anything else, the weight's just going to drop off. But let's get you moving more first, and sort of marrying that up with a bit of a tighter diet. It doesn't need to be perfect at first, because then you'll just fall off the cliff. It'll just not be sustainable. And I just try and get my clients going at that sort of steady pace where they can. You still got to live at the end of the day. You still got to have a bit of fun, but that sort of steady pace that can be more. Like I keep saying, the key word, sustainable.
What do you think, MC? What's your kind of approach?
I think we obviously just need to look at it in its basic forms, and like energy balance. Obviously, every macronutrient contains calories, provides your body with energy, and it doesn't matter what one it is. Carbs obviously contain 4 calories, protein 4 calories per gram, and fats 9. So a lot of the time that people are cutting out these carbs and losing weight is actually just down to energy balance. They've just created a deficit in order for them to lose weight, because they've cut out so much of their carbs. You're cutting out 4 calories per gram. So if you're cutting out like 60 grams, that's quite a big energy difference. So they're just creating this energy deficit without even knowing it, and that's it in its most basic form. Obviously, there'll be other factors to take into account, height, weight, body mass index, like how you're going to burn it. But in its most basic form, that's basically what it comes down to.
I'm a little bit with Gussie on this. I think that building a movement is a good idea because you're likely to build some muscle, and we know that building lean mass is a good way of boosting metabolism. And actually, it's more sustainable if you've done a bunch of exercise and you've got a bit more muscle, because then your the deficit you need doesn't need to be as drastic because your body is already using more, and it's easier to sustain it. Like for me personally, if I find that I'm cutting my calories and I'm not really looking at exercise, I find that my portion sizes get to a point where they're so small that I'm just not enjoying eating anymore, and I don't find it very sustainable. There is an experience to eating, and I think if I go and lift and train and build muscle mass, and I can then eat a bit more and enjoy my food a bit more, then for me personally, anyway, that's
what I will say is that carbs are probably the best foods. You have to agree with me on this. Most of the best foods have carbs in them, and if you're cutting out all the best foods, you're going to be miserable.
I think it's always balance, man. You need all of it. You need all of them to enjoy food.
Like Gussie was saying, how can you possibly sustain that? You're just going to want that stuff even more.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, what other myths are we facing, guys? So, obviously, we could spend forever talking about people and eating habits.
One more thing on the carbs before we move over.
Right.
Is a quote I like for Jamie Alderton. He says, "There's only 2 types of people in this world: those who don't like carbs and liars."
Brilliant.
Fair enough. Right, Gus, I think you had a bunch of other ones you were coming up with the other night. What's your myth of choice?
Well, the one that I popped in, the one that I did pop in was about talking about that fancy saying of the anabolic window. I'll come back to that actually in a bit, because I was thinking sort of when I was younger, starting before I was a PT and I was doing my training. I don't even know if it's sort of I don't even know if you could say it's a myth, but it's something like that I made the mistake of as I was growing up, and I'd hope a lot of my clients didn't. But here's another saying from you for you from James Smith: is comparison is the thief of joy. So what I mean by that is, when I was growing up and I started my training journey, you'd look about, like, I don't know if you guys were the same. I'd be looking about in the gym, seeing all these big guys, right? I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. And I saw them doing an exercise. I saw them doing how many sets. You pick up bits and pieces, and you start comparing yourself to them and saying, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And when I look back to myself now, is like, my training was it was so repetitive. Like, we always talk about training smart now. Like, I can smash out a session in 1 hour, 10 minutes. And it's exactly what I need. Back in the day, I used to think, right, I need to train for 2 hours, 5 days a week, just because some other big guy in the gym says that's what you should do. And I feel like a lot of young people are coming through, like girls and guys, they think that you need to do that as well. I don't know what you guys think from that, or your own experience, but
personally, my view is you have to learn your own individual body, don't you? You have to learn what works for you as an individual, and it's going to be a bit of trial and error. I mean, I think we all went and looked up to somebody at some point, or some group of guys at some point when we entered the gym. But you very quickly realize that what you're doing is what they're doing works for them, and really only them. It doesn't necessarily work for you. I think the only bit of advice I can give people when it comes to coming to gym is ask somebody who's educated. Number one thing to do. Doesn't matter, like, if you've got hundreds of friends that think they know what they're doing, unless they're qualified trainers themselves or they have some kind of background in sports or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily just take their word for it. You need someone to tailor something to you and work and experiment with what your body can do.
Massively.
I think it is a bit of trial and error, isn't it? Like, you have to be in the game to have a chance, don't you? So you have to go out and try these things. I often think people kind of write things off before they even start. So they'll just go like, I'll never be able to do that, or I'll never be able to do that type of training without even trying it, so they'll never know. A lot of people are like that with CrossFit when it started. It's just full of numpties that are going to injure themselves. But if you look at it now, it's actually like a proper sport, and it's a bit more controlled.
I wouldn't want to stop someone from starting. I wouldn't want to scare them off. I think if you got to get in and try, and then when you find you like it, then go ask for help. Maybe that's the best way.
That's exactly it. And you'll find out what you enjoy the more you do it. So if you try, there's all different types of training that you can do. So it's just finding the one you enjoy the most and sticking to that, really. And being consistent.
But I agree with you though, Gus. I do get people coming in like that. I do definitely get folk thinking that they have to look like this and that they're desperate to look like somebody else. And it's a shame, because you can only look as good as you can look, and you can only work as hard as you can work to make your body look as good as it can. And it's a learning process.
It's quite a big one, that. Because you probably see it a lot all the time, people smashing themselves 7 days a week. And these people tend to not change. And it's all down to, like, your body isn't this machine that can keep going. It does need rest and recovery, and those two are the most important things when you're actually thinking about changing your body and growing, building muscle. You have to have your recovery and your rest in there. Just as important as smashing yourself.
Unless you got the cheats on, which are natural, you do, yeah.
I always think as well, like, when I touch on sort of overtraining and not training smart, I remember, like, when I was sort of 18, 19, 20, growing up, and I was coming to Pure Gym 4 or 5 days a week. I'd do the exact same thing on a Monday. I'd come in the exact same muscle groups, the exact same exercise, the exact same sets and reps. Then Tuesday, it would be the same again. It would be chest and tries. Wednesday would be legs. I did that for months, probably years. And once I got to a certain base, that was me. I never saw any improvement. And it wasn't until I started educating myself more about mixing things up. You know, your body starts becoming used to it. You've got that old saying, you've got to shock your body. You add in drop sets, you add in supersets, you mix up different exercises, cable work, barbell work, dumbbell work. And it sounds so simple. Like, we could talk about it and other people could watch this and be like, yeah, of course, I know that. But it's amazing how many people come in and don't really know that. And I was one of them. And I think that's what's made me relate to others so well.
Yeah, it's like you say, you could go in there and you could do 3 gym sessions, 100% effort, giving it your all, or you could try and do 6 or 7 at about 50% effort because you're tired and fatigued. So like you say, it's all about training smart. You can get more out of doing less. Sometimes less is more.
Again, it's
people
all different.
Just don't understand that.
It's all different according to where you are. Like, I know that my biggest piece of advice when I first started in the gym was only to go twice a week. I know that sounds crazy, but I started off at twice a week and I stuck to it. And because it was only twice a week, it was easy for me to commit. And I did give everything I had to it. And I found that I really enjoyed it. And then I upped it to 3 times a week. And then eventually 4 times a week. And that's where I kind of stayed at 4 times a week. I mean, I went up above it sometimes and I went down below it sometimes, but generally speaking, that's kind of my average amount of training that I would do in a normal training time would be 4 times a week because my body responded to that. Like, and again, I think it's very individual. You'll find there are athletes out there that are doing monster amounts of training, but they go through a totally different system from the normal public. And people need to, one of the biggest myths is reading one of these magazines, following what your favorite athlete does to the letter. You're not The Rock. You're not going to grow like The Rock. You're not going to have the endurance or the eating capacity like that man. And it's just not realistic. Folk need to start looking at what their bodies are capable of themselves.
So I think looking at it, you've just got to be in the game and find out what works best for you. It's pretty much
there, eh? Yeah, do you know what we can sort of sum up in the way talking about carbs or diet and talking about training smart, how many days a week, what do you do? In a way, like what you touched on earlier, Des, is it is individuality. It depends on your body mechanics. It depends how fast is your metabolism. Like touching on sort of diet again, going on a slight tangent, but I get so many people, in fact, you two as well, say to me all the time, like, how can you eat all that and like you're still in the shape you are? And partly I'm lucky because of my body, like just the way I am and metabolism, etc. But partly because my energy output is so high as well. And I get that so often about people are saying like, how can you eat all those carbs? And like, if I eat one thing, it's like it's going back to just it's moving more and individuality. Everyone is different. Don't compare yourself to others. Do what works. You'll trial and error. Do what works for you. And you'll eventually get into that sort of routine that suits.
Cool. So back to your anabolic window question.
Yeah.
Because we kind of just briefly skimmed over that, and I think it is one of the most popular myths that, for those who don't know, the anabolic window idea is that immediately after training you have a short window of time that you have to get your protein in to maximize your recovery and results. And if you'd missed that, then you've some kind of gym kind of like sacrilege.
You've wasted your time, basically.
Gus, go and debunk that for us, please.
So, debunk, that's a great word. That's like a podcast word. So, I'm not going to lie, I was duped by this as well. I always remember it was my rugby mate back in the day, played rugby all the time, big lad. And he used to say, when someone hits you with that sort of saying, anabolic window, and it sounds, it's this sort of cool, fancy sort of saying, and you're thinking, I'm like,
sounds legit. Right. Sounds like something you should be doing, eh?
Yeah. So I'm training so I've trained, and then I get a bit of weather with the boys after. By the time I walk home, I might not have been having my tea until an hour and a half later. And honestly, I'll tell you the truth. After my mate had told me that, I started bringing a protein bars to the gym and stuff. I'd finished my training. I'm filling it up, necking this protein shake. And like I say, once you become more educated, it's not the case at all. It doesn't mean just because you're whacking in an extra like 40 grams of protein or whacking in all your food within that half an hour or 1 hour window or whatever they say it is nowadays. It's just not the case. As long as you get sufficient.
How did you feel doing that? Smashing down your protein and that after training. How did it feel?
I didn't even want to. I didn't even want to be doing. That way you've just finished training. I don't know if you guys get it. You're not instantly hungry as soon as you finish it. And I'm trying to tank this down. Do you know what it used to do? Is I tanked my protein shake. By the time I got home, it sort of bloated me up. I wasn't even hungry to actually eat my tea. And it's stuff you read, you see it online a lot as well, the whole anabolic window thing. But as long as you get sufficient calories in within the next sort of couple of hours or that night after training, you sleep well, you stay hydrated, give your body the best chance. There is no worries or no rush about packing a protein shake in, chicken and rice in 45 minutes afterwards. Like, it's just something that used to grind my gears. I thought, right, as soon as you spoke about mist days, I was like, right, we're getting the anabolic window in.
So there's a lot of debate over when, like, you know, if you eat beforehand as well, or when you eat throughout the day, it can affect you. I think there was like a lot of research going on that, and like they found that there was no real difference. So, for example, if you had like fasted in the morning and then done your training and then tried to hit your anabolic window, that it would affect you differently. And I think they found that there wasn't any difference with that either. So I think.
So what's your advice?
Just eat, correctly throughout the day. Just eat as you're eating. Get enough protein in, like Gus was saying. Get your calories in as you normally would. There's no sort of right or wrong time to be eating throughout the day, as long as your body's getting the energy it needs.
So the way I see it is this: you need to eat some protein after training. Not necessarily, not about anabolic window. We're just going to scrap down anabolic window for the time being, because I agree it's not necessary to stuff it in right away. But there is your body will demand a certain amount of food to recover from the training that is done. We can agree with that. The difference is it doesn't need to happen immediately. As long as you do get some food to aid your recovery, you will recover. As long as your sleep is appropriate as well, you'll obviously recover optimally. So the deal is just having the right amount of the right types of nutrition in your diet in and around your day, your training, and you'll get there regardless to window. There's no short time thing about it. Of course, like there is studies, as MC was saying, about foods application and maybe performance output. They might not be necessarily affected, but there is going to be certain aspects that are, especially when it comes to carbohydrates. Again, that's one of the reasons why we shouldn't demonize them. But if you're going to run a marathon, you need glycogen in your system. Having a lot of carbohydrate in your system is probably going to be a good idea. So there's obviously going to be caveats to everything, but when it comes to anabolic window, that's just not true. It's just make sure that you've got the protein you need. That's it.
Definitely. By the way, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to follow up because Gus had obviously said smashing protein shakes. That doesn't mean I don't think protein shakes have a place. They do have a place if you're finding it hard to get protein in your diet, whatever, and you're maybe on a job that's quite fast moving and you don't get time to sit and prepare a proper meal. Sometimes a protein shake can be an appropriate choice. So I'm not saying no protein shakes. I'm just saying maybe you don't need to do it right away. It's again.
It definitely comes back to that individuality again. Everyone's going to be so different, and it depends on your goals and what you need to do, and whether you're going to, like you say, performance-based days. If you're running marathons or whatever, you're going to have that glycogen in or whatever to keep you going. If you're looking for a bit of fat loss, it might often be better for you to wait an hour or two after you've trained to then eat, because you're going to increase your lipolysis, which is basically the oxidization of fat in your body, which is said to kind of obviously use your fat stores a bit more. So there's all sorts of things you can do depending on your goals. So it's entirely individual.
Okay, so that's that pretty much slam dunk.
What have you got for us, Des? What's one of the comments?
It's quite difficult because there's obviously quite a lot of things, but I think I was going to say that because Gus already touched on this, but I was going to say that more is better seems to be the number one problem that we face. Is this kind of idea that people need to do absolutely hundreds in order to get results, where actually they need to be consistent. So this was that was kind of what I was going to talk about. So you sort of stole my subject.
Sorry, Des, mate. I could touch on something else. I think another big one that I'm sure you guys will massively be able to relate to is, honestly, I'd say about 9 out of 10 clients of my clients in the gym are people that aren't quite sort of fully educated. If you say to them, they come to the gym and they say, right, Angus, I want to lose weight, I want to burn body fat, and I'd say, okay, what if you could pick any exercise you want to do that? What would they say? They say, I'll go and run on a treadmill. They always think cardio equals weight loss. But what I always try and get across to my clients is, weightlifting burns massive amounts of calories, and it just seems to be disregarded. They think, oh, if I start weightlifting, I'm going to start bulking or become like you start gaining all this muscle. And that's one I always think a massive myth. The cardio equals.
I'll say the myth there is weights make you big.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a myth that just is so prevalent.
That's a huge one. You get that all the time, mostly from females, because they're a bit worried about, you know, looking big, obviously bigger than their boyfriends. But that one's huge. You'll get that one a lot, and it just comes down to, again, the prescription of training you get. Different types of training will give you different types of results. Different nutrition will give you different results. So you're only going to get big and bulky if you train in a specific way to get bulky. If you're
Here's a myth for you. I thought of a good myth. Lean muscle mass means you're fit and healthy. So shredded doesn't mean healthy. I think we should probably cover that because it's not true. You know, there's this kind of big myth
healthism debate.
If you look like fit, that means you must be. And so a lot of it comes with the social media problems. Like we always see people popped on a pedestal because it looks amazing online. And I think actually healthy human beings have a degree of body fat.
I was actually just going to come to this point after Gus was talking about people thinking they can lose weight just by running. It comes down to how you basically feel when you train as well. Is a massive thing. So you can eat dust and, you know, just go and run on a treadmill, and of course you're going to lose weight. You're going to lose body fat. But you're going to be miserable. You're probably going to be tired, and it's not going to be fun for you.
Or sustainable.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, basically it comes down to how you feel when you're training as well.
If you love running, though, you know, I don't think people should be scared off from running if they love it. I mean,
absolutely not.
If it's yours, see, I'm not a particularly huge running fan. You know that. All you guys know that. It's not my thing. There are other cardio I'd rather do. In fact, most cardio I'd rather do than running. But having said that, that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate folk who love it. Because I've trained plenty of people who love running and want to do marathons and all this stuff. So I mean, if that's what you want to do, and that's what gets you going and gets you out of your bed in the morning, gets you moving. You're talking about moving more, Gassy. Like, so what happens if you meet that person that hates weight training? There are a few, but they love running and they love playing sports and they love doing games. I mean, I'm all for that. Like, if you're active and you like playing the sport, so you like playing football, that's your thing. Cool.
Yeah.
Like, you can still get in shape. You can still feel good. You don't need to be, as I say, I said this myth of being big and fucking muscular or really ripped and shredded is healthy. No, like you could be healthy playing football. You could be healthy just eating well. So there's different.
You could be slightly overweight, but you could eat, healthy foods. You can not smoke. You can walk every day.
Mm-hmm.
You can do all these kind of things that are classed as healthy. Or you could say, for example, have a PT that smokes, gets bevied every weekend. Does drugs and all that. Who are people going to think is healthier? Probably going to be the PT because of the way they look, if they've been obviously training well.
Yeah, so insides and outsides aren't necessarily the correlated. I mean, but I think there's a certain amount of known diseases that occur from being overweight, like badly overweight. So we have to draw a line somewhere on that. But obviously, it's not always as easy as like what it says on the tin. You're not necessarily because you look shredded doesn't mean that you're healthy or you have a clue what you're doing. That's association.
I don't think people fully understand what it kind of takes to get that lean and stay that lean.
Mm-hmm. Depending on the person, obviously.
These people, like the things they have to do for like these shows that they go and do. What is it? Your WBOAF or
you're talking about
things like that.
You're talking about your bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah, the bodybuilding stuff. I don't know what the competitions are, but you'll see them all the time, and doing their massive cuts for the competitions, and like that stuff is extreme. It's not just physical, but mental as well.
That's the thing. Like going back to the whole social media thing, like you saying that is people will see these pictures of these women or these guys, that are ripped or really slim, and people look at them and think, oh, if that's possible, that's realistic. That's what I want to look like. But see, behind that, like they can be sort of they have filters on the pictures. They're face tuned. They're all that sort of thing. And also, people think that they can maybe start to look like that. But behind that picture, a lot of those people are actually very unhappy. You know, like they're on this massively restricted calories, and they can't go out for a Saturday night for a glass of wine with their friends. Like, it looks all great there, but behind the scenes, are they all happy? Definitely not. And that's what sends out the wrong message to your everyday woman or guy.
Yeah, 100%. But I will also say, like, there's also this comparison window. Even if you're comparing yourself to a normal, but a person who's done it naturally and they've not filtered anything, and and all you see is the raw them. That's still their body. That's still their genetics. It's still something that they've worked hard for, and their life has allowed them to do it, or for whatever reason. And you shouldn't compare yourself, even if it is achievable. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a sort of mindset that's wrong there anyway. It should always be what you can do for the best of you and what you enjoy. You know, no one can tell me to go off start running marathons, even if they told me that I could get myself in a great shape and I'd look the best ever did. I couldn't care less. I hate running, so it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and you need to find, and that's what I mean, like comparing yourself to something that you might not even be able to achieve based on your body.
It's comparing yourself to people's highlights as well, though, because you're not going to see every part of what they do. You know, all you're going to see is like the end product, but nobody knows what they've had to do to get there.
Where they started. They could have started in a way ahead of you could ever be. So like, you see this shredded mutant online, but you're like, that guy started out the womb with a 6-pack and was already like muscular by nature, you know, and he just developed onto that and became a unique specimen. Like you say, like what you see on Instagram are the people who are like exceptional, you know, and they might have exceptional genetics. They might have a whole bunch of things that just suit them, which your body just won't do, or you don't have the time to do, or you haven't got a lifestyle to do. So you shouldn't. Yeah, this is one of the things. Like, hero worshipping isn't always a good idea.
Yeah, you know? Definitely.
Not for you mentally, anyway. Not for me, certainly. So, all right, guys.
We've got 4 minutes, so we could probably just kind of wrap up a few things of what we've said, and just kind of
do a summary.
So, the message I've kind of got from most of that was biological individuality is so important. So you are different from everyone else. You can't expect it to be the same as everyone else. So therefore, you have to find out what works for you. First of all, by playing the game, getting involved, putting some skin in there, and by trial and error. Don't be scared to try things out. If it doesn't work, you move on to plan B. If that doesn't work, plan C, and you just stick at it, and you'll find something that works for you.
See, from what I get from it as well, a short little summary from me is, if you just break it down, it's training, diet, lifestyle, all really comes together. I try and say, like, do what makes you happy, because if you're not making small decisions that makes you happy, you're never going to stick with it. And I'll try and find like-minded people, like who we've got on the Motiv8 team. Like-minded people, they all help each other. They help us, we help them. They're all helping each other. If you find like-minded people, they can bring you up as well, bring you up to the next level. And
definitely makes it a lot easier when you've got people around you that can support you and help you, and do something similar. Just like with the burpee challenge we've got going on just now, everyone's kind of been helping each other and motivating each other to do it. So it definitely helps, 100%. I agree with that.
Right, shout out to Avril. Avril killing it.
She has.
Everyone's doing well. Everyone.
To sum up, obviously after all that, in terms of myths, in terms of hearing something that sounds too good to be true, or sounds like it could be true but you're not sure, best thing you do, find somebody who you trust, who's in the know-how. Ask someone like one of your trainers, or somebody who actually has done some research, or someone who's been involved in this industry for a while. Ask them what they think, and you'll probably find it's what you expect. It isn't as good as you think it is, or it isn't as necessary as you think it is. And what you're doing already is probably more than enough to get you where you want to be. But at the same time, if you're feeling like you're stuck, these little myths aren't the key. They aren't going to make the game changer. Hitting the anabolic window isn't going to change you from being the way you are to some next level, training mutant. So just take everything with a wee pinch of salt and ask.
Yeah.
Ask your community. Like you
asking for help isn't weak. It's only going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right, guys, I think we've kind of summed up. That was pretty cheesy ending, but I'm happy with that. Right, we've got about a minute, so we just cut. We know what you do. Anyway, right. Well, I'll call it a day there, guys. It was fun today.
Yeah.
And I'll talk, and we'll get another one of these meetings up again at some point soon. Now we've got a wee date in hand for the gym's opening. We will definitely have more content.
Hopefully everyone's excited, and hopefully people find this interesting. And if they want to ask us questions, just fire in.
Absolutely.
I'd be interested to know what you want to hear.
That's a wrap, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
I'll talk to you soon. See you soon. Keep
safe.
safe.